Adam Schefter, ESPN NFL insider and NBA fantasy freak, and owner of the Adam Schefter podcast, joins us now on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Get the feeling of being rewarded with gold status at Shell with the Fuel Rewards program. Download the Fuel Rewards app, join, and start saving 5 cents a gallon today. All right, DJ Shefty Chef, lots to get into here. Let's start first and foremost with the idea of how all in the Rams are in 2018. Not only Aqib Talib, not only Marcus Peters, but now you have Ndamukong Suh next to Aaron Donald. My God, that defense is going to be almost impossible in 2018.
And did you see the tweet from son of a bum Wade Phillips
yes.
last night?
How great was that?
Wade has got a great sense of humor. He's got some SpongeBob figure ringing up some sort of tally. How would you describe it, Trey? I don't even know how to describe it.
It's the SpongeBob SquarePants gif where he's rolling up his thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
And he's all in.
Yeah, Adam, why and now, listen, we'll talk about schematically how great it is, but why a one-year deal?
Well, I think what happened was he went on the market, and he went around and was a little undecided, and we've got a situation where he was taking a look at various teams, and I think here's a guy who's always gotten exactly what he wanted. And the market didn't bear quite exactly what he wanted. And when teams were talking to him, they were talking about 2, 3, 4-year deals, but with the money guaranteed in only year one. So he's saying to himself, well, if you're only going to guarantee 1 year money, I might as well play on a 1-year deal and then take my chances after this season and become a free agent again. Bet on myself playing with Aaron Donald. So I think that's what he did here, in the sense that teams are offering so much money, but really only guarantees in the first year. So if that's the case, well, I'm only going to play on 1 year, and then I'll be a free agent again.
Well, it actually makes all the sense in the world, Adam, because if you're Aaron Donald, you're looking at Ndamukong Suh next to you and thinking, yeah, this will help me break the bank when my contract is done. And if you're Ndamukong Suh, you're thinking, wait a minute, I get to line up against the best player in football in Aaron Donald. I'll probably get a multi-year deal for about the same number I'm playing this 1 year deal on. This will work out for me well.
Well, it's probably, again, a wise bet considering that no team was offering guarantees beyond year one, so he might as well just play it out on a 1 year deal.
Okay, Adam Schefter with us from the NFL owners meetings in Orlando, Florida. Adam, what about the sort of, I don't want to say it's a fire, but there's sort of a burning ember with all this discussion about Odell Beckham Jr., and a lot of it is being generated by the fact of what some of the front office and ownership of the Giants is saying. Now, Steve Chitch, one of the co-owners of the Giants, came out and said, well, the contract will work itself out. But that was all preceded by John Mara saying he's tired of talking about the antics, and Odell Beckham Jr. knows what's expected of him. We've heard some reports that maybe the Rams have had some discussions about possibly talking about a trade for Odell Beckham Jr. What exactly can you tell us about what's real?
Okay, listen, here's the deal. It's funny because on the one hand, you've got the owner of the Giants, co-owner of the Giants, John Mara, coming out and saying what he did. John Mara is a man who is understated, who is measured with his words, who doesn't say things like that ordinarily. So when John Mara is saying that about Odell Beckham Jr., everybody should take note, because that tells you it's real. So now you're going to hear all the storylines, and we've begun to hear it, unlikely that they're going to trade him, probably going to be a Giant, all those things. I'm just telling you, the fact that the word probably going to be a Giant, unlikely that they trade him, the fact that those terms are being thrown out tells me that the Giants will be looking for a deal from now up into and through the draft for Odell Beckham Jr. And really what it comes down to is this, guys. They have to make a decision. They have to either pay Odell Beckham Jr., which right now they are not showing any inclination that they want to do that, or they've got to trade Odell Beckham Jr. It's one or the other. I don't think anybody thinks he's coming to play on $8.5 million, and they know that they have a pending decision to make, and at some point, he is going to want to get paid just the way that the receivers from his draft class, Sammy Watkins and Mike Evans, already have been paid this offseason. He hasn't. And now you see quarterbacks out there, guys like Kirk Cousins and Sam Bradford, all making way more than him. And I know it's a different position, but you can make the argument that outside of quarterback, that Odell Beckham Jr. is the most talented player in the game, period. And so you've got a situation where the Giants know that if they don't pay him, or are unwilling to pay him, or don't want to pay him what he's worth, then they need to move on from him, because he's going to command top dollar. And the fact that they're talking like they are tells me that this is alive, that this isn't going away. It doesn't mean they trade him, but my guess would be I will not be shocked if we see an Odell Beckham trade on or before the draft.
Wow.
It's Adam Schefter. I would be absolutely stunned if that were to happen.
Okay.
I wonder how much of the talk is like contractual, like we're going to play hardball as well, because
no, it's not it, Mike.
Aaron Donald's
listen.
not signed. Zach Martin's not signed. Le'Veon Bell's not signed. There's plenty of guys that aren't signed who are going to command top dollar.
Yeah, except the Cowboys have no problem paying Zach Martin, and the Steelers don't have a problem paying Le'Veon Bell. And the Giants haven't shown any inclination that they're willing to pay Odell Beckham Jr., yet, particularly with a new general manager in Dave Gettleman, who has come in and wants things done his way, wants people to fall in line. Last week they dealt Jason Pierre-Paul to Tampa for essentially a third-round pick. And so those other guys, those teams intend to sign. You cannot sit here today and say the Giants intend to sign Odell Beckham Jr. to a fair market value deal. You can't do that.
Adam Schefter with us, the Adam Schefter podcast, scheduled to interview new GM Dave Gettleman of the Giants. And let's be honest, Adam, you mentioned they got rid of Jason Pierre-Paul. Dave Gettleman was the guy in Carolina who took the franchise tag off Josh Norman and said, you know what, I don't want to deal with this, go with God. And it worked out well for Josh. It didn't work out for Dave. So, well, that's why he's with the Giants instead of the Carolina Panthers now. But Adam, the interesting thing is we all know the production that Odell Beckham brings. I mean, it's clear. We just put up the splits, or we just talked about the splits that Bill Barnwell noted the last 3 years, Eli Manning with Odell and without, they're ridiculous. So knowing what he is on the field and knowing everything that's swirled around, is there something that we believe the Giants know or they've dealt with that we don't know yet that would help facilitate the idea of them moving on from this guy?
No, but again, when John Mara says that he's tired of answering Odell Beckham Jr. questions and he's tired of the off-the-field antics and he knows what he has to do. Again, we in the media, we can come up with any explanation, speculation, conversation we want. Just look at what the owner said. Okay?
Yeah.
It's right there in front of you.
I get that. I listen, I'm with you. I was stunned when I heard that from John Mara, as Adam Schefter is with us. So, Adam, listen, we all have the timetable and the points table on what it takes to move a draft pick, right? To move from 12 to 2 or 12 to 1 like the Buffalo Bills or somebody might be thinking to get ahead of the Jets. So, in your estimation, what would it take for someone to make a deal for a player like Odell Beckham Jr.?
Well, it's funny you asked that because I had that conversation with a few different general managers and coaches yesterday. One GM said to me, and you're going to laugh when I say this, I think he was a little light. He goes, it's a 2 and a 4. And I said, where do you get a 2 and a 4 from for one of the best players in the game? And he said, because Marcus Peters went for a 2 and a 4. And Marcus Peters also is one of the best players in the game. Another coach
do you think that's a fair comparison?
Well, listen, let me tell you what another coach said to me. He goes, it would be a 1 and something else. If you look at what Percy Harvin went for from Minnesota to Seattle, I think it was a 1, a 7, and a future 3. And I think that's a better comparison, personally. I think with Odell Beckham Jr., if he were to be traded, I think the conversation includes a 1, and then it's something else. So maybe it's a 1 and a 4, maybe it's a 1 and a 5, maybe it's a 1 and a 3. Whatever the Giants can get, whatever the market can bear, whatever somebody's willing to offer, depending on how many teams would or wouldn't be interested. But I'll say this to you. There would not be as many interested teams as you would think right now, because for the same reason that Jarvis Landry had a tough time facilitating a trade. And I know Odell Beckham Jr. is a more talented player than Jarvis Landry, who's been a catch machine. And Jarvis Landry played the slot and averaged only 9 yards a catch. I got all that. But again, if we're going to use basic comparison, Jarvis Landry, when he was out on the open market, could not find a team until the end that was willing to pay both the Miami Dolphins what they were seeking in trade compensation and the player the contract that he wanted. And the Browns still have not given him the contract that he has wanted. They still have to figure that out. But again, when Jarvis Landry was going through this, there were a couple of teams he was talking. He spoke to the Bears at one point, spoke to the Ravens at one point, and spoke to the Browns. Well, guess what? The Browns traded for Jarvis Landry. The Bears added Allen Robinson. The Ravens added Michael Crabtree and others. So, again, it's a different conversation on February 27th about a trade for Odell Beckham Jr. than it is on March 27th, because the market becomes more limited, and it's not as if the Giants can auction him off in a bidding war, which, again, may go back to Mike's point of saying he doubts that they're going to trade him. He doesn't believe they'll trade him. Again, ultimately, maybe they don't. I'm just telling you, they're going to look to do that, and we'll see whether they can find something of value to make them want to do that.
Fascinating.
Along those lines about paying him, we know Aaron Donald's going to get what he's going to get, and Zach Martin's going to get. They're going to get tops of their positions. Le'Veon Bell as well. When we hear that about Landry and then about Odell Beckham possibly having trouble finding that, is that because Odell and his antics, or Odell and the injury situation from last year?
I think it's Odell and the salary as much as anything else. You need a team that has a need at wide receiver, which, again, many teams have addressed, and you need a team with salary cap space, and you need a team with a strong head coach who can control the player, and you need a team that is unbothered by what has gone on off the field. So in a way, it's all those, but I start with the money because it's always about the money. What team is willing to pay him? And this is exactly why we're having this conversation right now, because right now it doesn't appear as if the Giants are. And because they're not, somebody else may step up and be willing to do that. But we have not found that team that is willing to not only pay Odell Beckham Jr., but they'll then go and compensate the Giants with commensurate draft picks. That's why it's challenging. And when you hear the name Odell Beckham Jr., as big a star as the sport has outside maybe Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers, you've got a situation here where people's minds are, how could the Giants trade him? But again, it's a business decision here for a guy who wants to be paid, for a team right now that has been unwilling and hesitant to pay him, for a guy that's had some off-the-field question marks that have rubbed the Giants the wrong way, for a new GM who's trying to come in and set the culture. And you add all these things together, and you get the combustible conversation that we're having this morning.
It's absolutely fascinating. I mean, the NFL has no offseason, and Adam Schefter is living proof of that, our NFL insider. Joins us on Golic and Wingo this morning. Schefter's podcast has new episodes weekly. Listen live on the ESPN app and Apple Podcasts this week. He has Colts GM Chris Ballard and Jets head coach Todd Bowles. And again, scheduled to interview Giants GM Dave Gettleman today. That one should be interesting,
yes.
Adam. But the other thing that's interesting going on in the NFL owners' meetings is the attempt to try and figure out what we can do to clarify the catch rule. And there have been all these things that have been proposed. Dean Blandino, by the way, who used to be the head of the NFL referees and now is working for Fox, he had this interesting comment to say. The way the rule is proposed now, which is control 2 feet down and the third act, or the ability to do that, he says, is that going to be harder for the official in real time to make that call consistently? Are we going to have more plays go to replay? Because it feels like this new rule is geared toward replay than real-time officiating on the field. So I think the whole point is to make it clearer and less confusing. But Dean, who's been in that chair, said, wait a minute, this may actually make it more confusing.
Well, and as Bill Polian, who's been on that competition committee before, has always said, there are always, when you make a rule, unintended consequences. And one of the unintended consequences here may be a system that you describe with Dean Blandino as having more replays and more controversies. Look, the league is trying to simplify this rule and make it so that there's no question about what is and isn't a catch. Dez caught it. Calvin Johnson caught it. Jesse James caught it. Great. But yes, there will be plays, and we went through them once on NFL Live with Ryan Clark and Louis Riddick, where you catch the ball, you turn around. Is that a fumble or is it a catch? Which one is it? What are we ruling? And there are going to be some questions that come out of this without question.
How quickly will the let's make defensive pass interference a 15-yard penalty instead of a spot foul get thrown out because it's for the defense and they don't want to do that?
Yeah, it doesn't have enough support right now. I mean, look, this is an offensive league, and that proposal from the New York Jets met resistance from the competition committee. It did not look like it had enough support. They're going to have some of these rules changes that are voted on today. Whether we'll see whether that one gets passed. I don't think it will. It doesn't sound like it will. But again, we'll wait for the final vote there.
ESPN insider, NFL insider Adam Schefter with us from the NFL owners meetings in Orlando. Obviously, a lot going on there. Adam, there's also the story that's sort of bizarrely unfolding involving new Eagles defensive tackle or defensive lineman Michael Bennett regarding something that happened in Super Bowl 51, not Super Bowl 52, Super Bowl 51 in Houston, where he has surrendered himself to authorities and posted bail on charges of a felony assault with a person with limitations and injuries. This is sort of a bizarre thing in that it took 14, 15 months for charges to be brought. There seems to be a lot of vagueness in what's going on here. What more can you tell us about what you actually know?
Well, what we actually know is that his attorney, Rusty Hardin, came out yesterday and said that Michael Bennett didn't do this. Now, again, that's his attorney, that's his side, and there's the other side in which the grand jury, the court down in Texas charged him with this particular case. So you've got a couple of different versions, but as you said, Trey, it's very odd that this would come up 15 months later.
Right.
Like and not only did it come up 15 months later, but the teams didn't even know about this. Like it was just something that was underneath the carpet and nobody realized and nobody knew. And Seattle deals Michael Bennett without any idea that he had been involved in any sort of controversial incident from Super Bowl 51. Again, a strange story. I'm sure the league will look into it. I don't know that anything much is going to come out of this, but it is interesting to see how this develops 15 months later.
No, he had to surrender himself to authorities.
Yes, he did.
So we'll see what happens going forward. He's allowed to travel back and forth. But again, the timing of this seems very strange.
Odd.
That it comes so long after the fact. And we'll see how it plays out. Listen, Adam, just take care of a couple things for us. Break the Sammy Watkins trade. Get the Odell Beckham Jr. trade. Make sure we fix the catch rule, and also break any other story that may be happening. Okay?
No problem, Trey. We're on it. We'll take care of that for you.
Appreciate it, brother.